A friend of my brother moved to Israel where for a period of time it was as acceptable to drive with an American driver's license. He was pulled over for speeding, and when asked for his license, gave the officer his Costco card. Costco is a membership-based retail warehouse in the US and a few other countries. The exchange apparently went something like this: "Officer, Costco? What is Costco?" "Friend, it's the state I'm from." "Officer, that sounds made up." "Friend, there are lots of states you probably haven't heard of. Have you heard of Arkansas? How about Idaho?" "Officer, I guess not." "Friend, well, I'm from the small state of Costco." The officer didn't have a response and wound up writing the ticket to someone with a Costco driver's license. Friend framed the ticket and still has it hanging on his wall. Reminds me of a family friend of mine, very funny Australian with an absolutely horrendous Bogan accent. Well, late 80s he's driving through Texas and runs a red light, and is immediately pulled over by a 250-pound Texan police officer with an equally horrendous accent. The way the stories goes, this man is obviously not the brightest chap. So our friend, when asked about running the red light, gets very apologetic and explains that he gets easily confused because in Australia, you know how things are revered down there, red means go and green means stop. The cop actually let this man go with a warning: "I did not know that. Well, in America, red means stop, so don't make this mistake again." Literally sounds like a bit from The Simpsons. Hilarious. That's German for the Bart, the. How do you remember how many underscores are in your name? I don't, and I never want to. Damn, you gotta hope Reddit never logs you out, haha. My favorite was the guy who stole a post office mailbox off the street, repainted it, and then put it next to the night deposit box at a bank. And hung an out of order sign on the deposit box. All the businesses came along and dropped off their deposits in the mailbox. Not a policeman here, but I have a nice story from insurance/debt collectors. There was this guy who was already in heaps of debt. Like more than a lifetime's worth of debt. He proceeded to file several police reports for identity theft up to the point that he got protected from financial checkups. It was a temporary measure that were given to repeated identity theft victims. At the same time, he had reported fake income to the IRS for the last couple of years to between 40 to 60 millions depending on the year. So when he applied for credit cards and loans, they were unable to check his financial credit, due to the identity theft protection, but they checked his tax returns which showed he had a massive income. Got his loans and credit cards, emptied them out and left the country. That's a good way to finance emigrating out of a third world country. When I was 18 and going through a tough time, my old co-worker told me to open a line of credit with my dad's SSN, buy a bunch of iPads, sell them fast, and move to Argentina. Not up but Argentine here. Right now, not good. Here's one. I knew this guy back in the early 80s, let's call him Jim. Well, he really wanted this high-powered superbike, but he knew he could never afford it, so what he did was to take drive to London and scout it about for a few days until he found that particular model parked outside a house. He goes back that night with a slide hammer, pulls the lock, and steals the bike. He gets it home, puts it in his garage and completely strips it so that the only thing left is the frame and the bottom half of the engine, which he drags into the weeds at the bottom of his garden. Then he pours fuel over it and burns it a bit. A few weeks pass and weeds have started growing over it. It's at that point he calls the cops and reports that someone had dumped a bike frame in his garden. The cops show up and he explains that he'd just got back from being away and found it. The cops take the frame and note down high name and address. A few days later, the cops call him and say that the bike had been stolen from London a month or so ago, from the serial number on the bottom half of the engine and frame, and that the insurance company had classed the bike as a write-off, and had told the cops to dispose of it. Now, because the frame was found in his garden and the insurance company didn't want it, the cops were duty-bound to ask him if he wanted to keep it, or if they should throw it. So he tells them that he'd always wanted to build a bike. He gets the frame back from them, repaints it, then puts it all back together and re-registers it as a key reg, stolen and recovered. I forgot to call him Jim, didn't I? Edit. To all the people asking if I'm Jim, no, I'm not. I knew him well though, we went to school together and he lived a few doors down from me. I had my own group of friends and occasionally when out at the pub, we would bump into him and he'd tell us of his exploits without a care in the world. As far as that bike goes, he proudly told a few people about it, but you know, we don't grass. He crashed the bike a few months later and was injured, but I can't remember how. He was pretty much a career criminal the last time I saw him, and ended up in jail for a while. While many regard him as scum, I always felt bad for him. Both his parents died before he was 12 and he was in and out of care homes for years. Out of his 4 brothers, One was murdered, the other died of an asthma attack, and another committed suicide. He could never hold down a job and also suffered from depression. The bloke had a shit life. It's been more than 25 years since I saw him last and I often wonder how he's doing. Edit 2. Thanks for the gold, my man. I always laugh when somebody names a character and then proceeds to never use the name. Nice catch. I laugh too. I was gonna read back and check because I wasn't paying attention. But then I didn't. Not a copper, but this was pretty smart. I used to run bars at a number of venues around the north of England, one of which was Chester Racecourse. Usually, we just have to keep an eye out for scousers trying to nick drinks or sneak in without paying, and with it being so close to Liverpool there was a fair amount of security on site. You could tell them, as they'd be suited, booted, a high-vis waistcoat on and usually carrying a radio. Now there were a dozen or so bars dotted around the course, and you can imagine the amount of money that was taken from 100,000 or so punters drinking steadily from 11 until 8 or 9 in the evening. So every hour or so, the security would go round the bars in turn and take all the high-denomination notes from each till and stick them in the safe in the main building. So I'm stood there one day, pulling pints doing the barman thing. The security blokes have been round a few times and it's getting steadily busier. Then one bloke shows up on his own, high-vis on and radio in his hand, does the deal, leaving the usual receipt so we can balance up at the end of the meeting. Bit early I think, but hey ho, I've got plenty to do. Then 10 minutes or so later, two more blokes show up, dressed the same. "Oh, your mate's just been here," I said. "No need to touch that just yet." "What mate? We're the only two doing this duty today." Cue a rapid-fire and increasingly panicked exchange over the radio. Matey boy who'd done the till before used to work there apparently, so he knew the drill and he'd been watching the guards and knew just when to time it and what order they were going round the bars in. Apparently he got round 9 or 10 before he decided not to push his luck any further and walked away with about 80 grand we heard later. Just took off the high-vis, dumped that on the radio and he's just one more guy in a suit in a crowd of thousands. They were a bit stricter on the procedure after that. Smile. If they knew he used to work as security, couldn't they find out who he is? And you'd be able to identify him? Shrugs possibly. But TBH, I was so busy at the time all the description I could give was well, he had a suit and a high-vis on. And I wasn't the only one. Like the guy who did Walmart someone else mentioned, if you look like you know what you're doing then a lot of times you won't be questioned, especially on a massive site like that with hundreds of staff who may not know each other. They may well have caught up with him later. But certainly on the day he walked off the site with the cash. They've done studies. If someone comes in wearing something like a high-vis jacket and hat, your brain will only remember that stuff. There was a guy who used to rob banks wearing a high-vis construction vest and hard hat. The only part people remembered about him was that. No facial features at all. This thief was actually pretty smart to pull this off. Worked at a jail. After getting off work, I watched an ex-inmate, homeless, being released. He walked over to a patrol car, looked me in the eye, and the elbowed the window in. He was walked back to the entrance and rebooked in. It was middle of January. He didn't want to get too cold. Edit, to the people talking about can't break car windows. That's true. Also depends on the car. The patrol car they used was specifically old model. Used more for the perimeter of the jail unless other patrol cars were in the shop. Those windows had been replaced so many times. I'd if it's the same material or what. And for the ones asking for news links, come on guys, you really think the news reports small-time things? Those aren't dramatic enough. I could probably find their charges and stuff and share, but I'm not gonna do that to this guy. He was a nice guy. Not a dick. I'm not gonna put him on blast just to prove anything to people for karma or anything along those lines. Not only does he stay warm through the winter, he is also provided with 3 hot meals and a bed. I would do the same if I found myself homeless and jobless. Not 3 hot meals, but 3 meals nonetheless. A French thief who spent 10 years in prison became a comedian when he got out. One of his stories. Finds a building, goes in, chooses a floor and transforms the exit door into an extra apartment. Puts the apartment number, fake lock, welcome rug, etc. Puts an iPhone for sale. The person comes to buy it, he opens the door in a shower robe and says give me 1 second, I'm just gonna count the money, and poof. He's gone from the exit stairs. This seems like exactly the kind of crime a comedian would commit. I mean, it is kind of funny. Well, to everyone but the person who got screwed. Probably someone who committed a crime I never solved. With that being said, I had a guy use a sledgehammer to smash his way through a wall at a Best Buy and steal a bunch of phones and cameras. He was smart enough to wear gloves and a face mask and not touch anything he didn't have to. Alarms didn't go off until he exited out the back door, which the alarm company gets after a minute or two and takes them like 3/4 minutes to call into us, giving him a good 5-minute head start, so he was probably a few miles away before we got dispatched to it. He clearly scoped out the area before doing his deed too. Smart dude. Edit. So part of the building was built into a hill, so the hole was on the back side of the building along the grade line, but when you're inside the building it was about 8 feet up, so it was easier for him to leave out a door. Also, the wall section where he broke through was hollow cement block, the portion of the wall below that was poured concrete. I just keep thinking about Sledge from Rainbow Six Siege. Rainbow Six fell on hard times and Sledge turned to a life of crime, breaking into Greg's and stealing anything warm or not nailed down. Not a police officer, but was an RA in college. My university owned all the houses adjacent to campus. These were ran like dorms, with RAs and the same rules, which included a very strict no alcohol policy. It was a privilege to live in the houses, and priority was given to upperclassmen who were more likely to bend that rule because they were of age, and it was harder to police off campus in houses. There was a student who went around knocking on doors saying something like "I'm an RA and, housing director's name, sent me for health and wellness checks." She'd find their booze, take it, and follow up with how she's doing them a favor by just giving them a warning. She wasn't actually an RA and was just keeping the booze for herself. The only reason she got found out was because she did it to an actual RA. The RA was male, they kept men and women housing separate, and just assumed he didn't know her because of that. It was only later he questioned why they had a female doing wellness checks on male housing. They did an investigation and asked other residents. Incidents dated back previous 2 years. Never found out who it was. Yaraz aren't actually allowed to go through our room. They come in, see no fire hazards, they aren't even allowed to open the fridge or any boxes or anything. As long as it isn't out in the open, we're good. Former RA here. You're right, we couldn't sift through your belongings. We had to basically stand in the center of the room and just sweep our eyes around to see if anything was breaking the rules or harming the room. You would be amazed at how many people leave their clearly against the rules stuff right out in the open. Especially since we announced our presence by knocking and clearly stating that we were RAs and by informing everyone a week in advance that we were doing these sweeps. Busted a lot of people making poor mistakes. Honestly, just as many who were in their rooms when we did our sweeps as the people who were out. You'd think if the RA was knocking at your door, you'd at least try to hide something. My university supplied free refrigerators to all the freshmen. Yeah. Found out later that they do that so that they have the right to allow RAs to check it whenever they want because the school owned it. Definitely this guy who ate the bank robbery note right off the hood of the police car when they were emptying his pockets. Although I'm fairly sure he was still convicted. LMAO his face. He's like, no one's looking. It's free real estate. Meal estate. Finally some good fucking food. Same thing as the computer rooms, guys would cut the power to electrical stations, damage the wiring, then hide waiting for the cops to show up. Once the owners of the buildings came, they would shut off the power because of the unsafe wiring that would have to be repaired in the morning. Everyone would leave for the night, then would cut away all the non-powered wiring to get the copper. I hate this shit. Copper is not expensive enough to be worth this fuckery. It's fucking $3 per pound. Even if dirt is only $3 per pound, you can get it for free and still sell it. Copper thieves are fucking scumbags who cause 100x more damage costs than they can ever make from the copper. Colorado Springs had a real problem with this. I'm sure it wasn't the only city, of course, but there was a fucking full-on gold rush for taking copper out of all the traffic and street lights. Taxes ended up getting raised considerably, along with the municipal electrical rates, to help pay for replacement wiring/security. It's not worth it, you're right, it just fucks shit up for others. I worked with this one guy who had a lengthy record. He had a system for getting released if he got caught. After committing a crime, if the police were in pursuit and he knew he was about to be cornered, he would act insane. His girl would play along with it, telling the police that he was off his medication. The police would arrest him but then send him to a mental ward with papers instructing the ward to release to police once he was cleared. Once he was in the mental ward, he would cause a distraction that would make the person attending the desk with the file cabinet to leave said cabinet. He would then crawl to the file cabinet, look for his release to police papers, and then would literally eat the papers. When the psych evaluators decided that he was stable enough to be released, there would be no instructions to send him to the police, and he would be released to the general public. He did this about 10 times until police officers noticed him back on the streets. This stunt forced the state to change their procedure for detaining mentally unstable suspects. I heard about one person that pulled a shoplifting scam on a large, popular and well-known US retail store. They walked in with some cheap nylon product to get one of those "I walked in with this" stickers they used to put on returning merchandise. The sticker easily peeled off the product undamaged. They walked to the electronics department, grabbed an expensive box off the shelf and went to customer service. They placed the sticker on the big box and asked if they could return the item without a receipt. Unfortunately, no. Not without the original receipt. Dang it, and they walk out. Customer service even gave the doorman the thumbs up, having just interacted with the customer. This took place before widespread inventory controls and cameras absolutely everywhere. I feel like I would remember what I had and hadn't recently put a sticker on. But perhaps I wouldn't be getting paid enough to worry too much about it. I believe at this time, the large national chain we are talking about was hiring people that just had to remember to smile. They did not have to be very sharp at the door. Or young. There's one guy I recently dealt with who is on parole. I stopped him in my city after he was looking to buy drugs. Usually people come from all over to buy drugs and then leave. I issue him a warning and let him go, as it's pretty common, and he sang like a bird regarding the people he was trying to buy from. Anyway, the next day, I got a call from his parole officer who says he was alerted the guy was pulled over and wanted to verify that it was his guy that I stopped. I'm a little confused at first, but he goes on to say that the day before, he was scheduled to meet with him but he had an excuse and bailed. His excuse was that he was in the hospital. Well, when he spoke with him the following day, he was able to provide documentation that he had entered the hospital day 1 and had left day 2. Well, I had stopped him at 1:15 in the morning, and after looking at the picture, it was 100% him. Turns out the guy had checked in then out of the hospital on day 1, then in and out again on day 2. He then rearranged half the paperwork to make it look like he was in the hospital overnight, which would make my car stop of him appear like I mixed him up with someone else, as well as give him a valid excuse to miss their meeting. Not sure what's gonna happen to that guy, but I thought it was pretty clever. This was in the late 90s, early 00s. A guy in my dorm came to school solely to deal drugs. He took out student loans, registered for a bunch of 300-person freshman survey courses where he would never be missed, then literally never went to class. All he did was go to raves and concerts and keggers and sell party drugs. After the first semester, he was suspended. He wrote the usual "I was young and dumb and in over my head" sob story, and got put on probation for a semester. So he had a repeat of the fall. At the end of the year, he was kicked out, and didn't care. He made something on the order of $150,000, in return for about $8,000 in student loans to cover a year of housing and tuition. So far as I know, he was never caught. It may have been a short-sighted maneuver in the long run, but in the short run it seemed fairly genius to effectively use federal loans to start your drug business. He should have played the long con. Cash out the $150K, apply to another school with the understanding he would pay cash. Live somewhat frugally so the cash lasts, and use his story from the first school for his thesis to get his master's. But wouldn't they see his transcripts from the place he failed out of? Working in a home improvement store when younger. This guy came in, went to the snowblowers, took one and went to the return desk. Said he wanted to return it but had no receipt. They told him you need a receipt, so he says okay, I'll be back, and wheels it off to car through the front door. He did this a few times apparently. Couple places even helped him load it back into his car. Had a guy try that with the big expensive betting sets at Sears back 20 years ago. He came up the escalator empty-handed, walked into the first aisle, and came out carrying the set. He said he wanted to return it. I said I needed a receipt, and when he asked why, I explained, well, sometimes we have issues with people coming up here, taking stuff off the shelves and trying to return it. He got a bit squirrely, looked around kinda panicked and left with it. On the way to the door, security started following him, so he threw it at them and sprinted out the door. On the way to the door, security started following him, so he threw it at them and sprinted out the door. Dead lol. Former Sears employee here. Theft was a huge problem at my store. This was right before everyone caught on to Sears going under. I had to cover lawn and garden, tools, and sporting goods, all by myself. We're talking literally an entire half of the building with absolutely no way to see everything going on at one given moment. It was so bad that thieves would take locked items to the register while I was in the middle of my tractor pitch, unlock the items, and walk out the door. They didn't even need to unlock them though, because my store had just fired all of the asset protection team. We didn't meet our sales goals for the year, and B, there were no sensor/alarms to go off when the security devices passed through the door anyway. Firing your assets protection team sounds like a really bad move. I am not a policeman, But there was a guy in the UK that gained notoriety for an audacious plan which sounds like it would be real. Basically, this guy and 2 accomplices went to the supermarket in 3 separate cars as 3 customers. Person 1 and 2 went into the supermarket individually and bought a large quantity of goods, from a memorized list. Person 1 paid for the goods, and says something a bit flirty to the girl working the till. He leaves the supermarket and dumps the trolley next to one of the cars and heads back into the supermarket. Person 3 loads up that trolley into the car and drives away. Person 1 returns to the supermarket, and picks up a packet of razor blades. On the way back to the till, he picks up Person 2's trolley, which has been loaded with identical items to the first trolley and dumped in an aisle. Person 2 has already left the supermarket by then, and Person 1 now has everything he needs to go back to the same till, flirt again with the same lady, explain he forgot the razor blades, and pay for them. If anyone stops him or suspects that he has not paid for the groceries, he has a receipt in his pocket with the correct items, an appropriate time and date, a member of staff that remembers him, and all the evidence is in his favor so he can prove he paid for a massive trolley full of stolen items. All 3 people in the scheme remained separate but wore identical clothes, so even when reviewing the CCTV there would be no point where you see multiple people. The big giveaway to this scam was that the first trolley full of shopping would have been put into carrier bags, so the second trolley would look different, but now the UK charges for carrier bags and assumes you will bring canvas bags and reuse them, so it's completely normal to leave the supermarket with unbagged goods and put the items into the bags that you have in the boot of your car. There's folklore to this story, but I remember thinking it's an impressive criminal mind to come up with that idea. I remember an officer telling me about a B&D alarm he and his team responded to. No one was there to report the alarm, it must have been a security monitoring company that called. When police showed up, everything seemed normal, most lights were off, and there was an employee still working. Explains he was there working late and must have set off an alarm. They almost believed him until he said before saying the name of the company he worked for. After that it was downhill, but with a little more research he would have pretty much gotten away with it. I don't care how long I've been working for a company, I'd probably still say you with my dumbass too. I'll be sure not to loiter around any crime scenes now. Anyone that immediately requests a lawyer, prior to questioning. That's the smartest thing you can do, if you committed a crime, in most scenarios. If you speak with me and confess, you're fucked. If you speak with me and lie, and I can prove it, you're fucked. If you say nothing at all, there's a chance I'm fucked. Always request a lawyer even if you haven't committed a crime, because what you say can still be used against you. Having an attorney present during interrogation is an essential right. So much this. Do not talk to police, most of them are really stupid, so this guy isn't a criminal mastermind, but here goes. He wanted to rob a jeweler's on our city's main street. So he found out the flat beside the jeweler's was empty and he hid there. For 2 weeks he triggered the alarm on purpose several times a night. Massive headache for the police and the business. We turned up to see nothing there, nothing on cameras, thought it was just a fluke, so the jewelers turned off the alarm system and said they'd wait until the morning to get a new one installed or that one rewired because something wasn't right. As soon as he heard that and the police leaving, he tore down the wall, had already been working on this apparently, and robbed the place taking his sweet time. Escaped without anyone noticing anything for hours, until the jewelers came back in the morning. Then he tried to resell something he stole which had a serial number on it and got caught. So not that smart after all. Good effort though. He did all the hard work pretty well. Guy I went to high school with kept selling this gold necklace under a fake ID to jewelry stores. When he had cash in his hand from the sale, he'd flash a real-looking airsoft gun and demand the necklace back. Worked about twice until the third guy knew what the deal was if someone tried selling this one particular necklace. Shop owner went in the back to reference an appraisal book and just called the cops. Funny part was he got like a year for the robberies, but using the fake gun added 5 years to the sentence. Never rob a bank with a weapon. You'll be out in like a year or less if you get caught. Edit. Tellers are trained to treat all robbers as though they are armed and to comply with their demands and get them out of the bank ASAP. Money is insured. Banks would rather lose a bunch of cash than deal with legal ramifications of an injured or killed employee. If you show up and tell the teller you're robbing them, they will probably give you the money quicker and more calmly than if you stuck a gun or knife in their face quicker. Premeditative daydreaming. It's where you pace around for hours on end, fabricating a perfect or desired reality where things happen just the way you want them to. I've tried this to help me sleep at night, but this just makes my mind think too much. Also, I have a problem with this where I do this all the time and I can't stop. I don't have anxiety, but I do have a big problem with daydreaming for hours on end where it will affect my mood, facial expressions and lip movements. And I'll sometime have to stop what I'm doing to finish the daydream. Would you have any idea if there is a name for this problem? Maladaptive daydreaming. As weird as this sounds, whenever I am having an anxiety moment, I have chronic anxiety, I watch lo-fi hip-hop beats to relax/study too. The music is soothing and there are often really nice people in the comments that can help me through it. What usually worked for me is the rule of fives. Anything that's getting me worried or worked up, ask myself, will this still be a problem in 5 minutes? 5 hours? 5 days? Etc. Things become a lot less scary when you realize they hardly ever make it past the first 2 questions. Honestly, Xanax is a literal lifesaver for me. Same. I'm only need it when a full panic attack happens which, fortunately, is only every few months. Prozac helps manage it daily. I have to find a doc who will write it for me though. So many people abuse it in my area it is hard to get docs to agree to prescribing. Same. My boyfriend and I both have anxiety and he gets a prescription of Xanax and my doctor won't give me one, probably because it's highly abused. I know it would help me but she still won't prescribe it. Maddening. I listen to music. I have 700 plus songs in my playlist, on a physical SD card. I have one for pretty much every occasion, everything from a funeral to rough sex, all within certain bounds of my taste. Do you have one for crashing a funeral? What about crashing a funeral with rough sex? Depends if you make meatloaf. Musical note, I would do anything for love, but I won't do that. Musical note. I have 3 approaches: physical, long-term, and short-term. Physical, avoid sugar and carbs, get 8 to 9 hours of sleep every night, wake up at same time every morning, exercise every day. Long-term, gradual controlled exposure to things that cause me anxiety. For example, if I'm afraid to talk to strangers, which I start by going to a public place and keeping to myself. Next time I might make eye contact a few times, or maybe smile. Next time I'd ask someone for the time, or talk a little with a cashier. You get the point. Short-term, I focus on my breathing, and remind myself of other situations where I was anxious, and it turned out okay. Instead of pushing the anxiety away, I accept it and pay close attention to how it feels, the slightly sick feeling, the quick heartbeat, ect. I just pay attention to the physical sensation and accept that it will be there while I do whatever it is that needs to be done. I have generalized anxiety disorder and major depressive disorder. Because of this I tend to constantly be thinking and overthinking things to the point of being anxious. I find that I cope the best when I look at situations from an outside perspective. So, rather than thinking how am I going to handle this, I think how should they handle this? Disconnecting myself takes the pressure off. It can confuse people sometimes though because it gets to the point that I refer to myself as we despite considering myself to be one person with singular pronouns. I also bounce my leg a lot, so there's that. I was diagnosed with both of those disorders in 2008 in my 30s. Went to the hospital a couple times, once in an ambulance, before I figured out what panic attacks were. I was on medication for a few years and went to therapy. You can get through it. I have been free and clear of it for many years now. While I still do feel anxiety creeping up on me occasionally, it hasn't affected my life. I have a family, stable job, group of friends, and travel a bit. PM me if you want more details about what I did. Mostly unhealthy methods. Working too much. Drinking too much. Constantly thinking about what is triggering the anxiety. A child therapist told my daughter that sometimes anxieties and fears are like a plant. You water it, talk to it, tend to it, it thrives. You neglect it, it withers. The strategy that worked for her is to set aside her fears, and have 1 5-minute period every evening before dinner where she talks to us about her fears and worries. Then, we leave the rest till the next day. Mind you, this is about getting a 7-year-old to stop obsessing about bees in our yard, snakes at her school, cancer, whether her diet is healthy enough, dying in a shipwreck, we live in suburban Atlanta and she's never been on a boat of any kind, etc. This worked wonders for her. It's not really suppressing, it's using mindfulness to realize that there is no danger right this moment, and to postpone talking about the spiraling thoughts until the evening vent period. You're a good parent. Your daughter is immensely lucky to have you. Sounds like great parenting on dealing with cancer and shipwreck fears. Why are there so many bees in your yard and snakes at her school? There aren't. She got stung by a bee last year, and thinks she saw a snake in the woods at her school. It's a nature school, so they're always outside, in the woods, gardening, tending horses, etc. It's not like a snake slithered into a cafeteria or something. A nature school reminds of a certain school in the northern suburbs of Atlanta. Smile. Breathing in my nose and out of my nose. When we start breathing through our mouths and panting, it signals our body we are in trouble. If you stay through your nose, it helps you remain incredibly calm. I just used this technique recently and it changed my life. Highly suggest, heart. I was told by a counselor recently that people who have anxiety tend to take very shallow breaths. Since he said that, I've paid more attention to my breathing and it makes such a difference. I feel more alert, less worried about random things, and don't yawn nearly as much as I used to. Couldn't agree more. Certainly nor doing something to change your appearance. Nothing says I'm trying to cover up a mental breakdown quite like doing something drastic to your hair. Many pixie cuts later, I finally decided I should stop chipping all my hair off when I get stressed. Lol. Geez. If that works for you, then cool beans. But I can't even imagine how anxious I'd be if I changed something and people called me out on it or didn't like it. I don't know if this is the healthiest, but I have no worry times. These are just 2 hours of my day I put away where I don't worry about anything, and then I'll do the worrying later. It took me a while to get used to, but it helps. Also, taking shower helps for me, but I don't know if that's just me. I wish showering would help my anxiety. Showering is really difficult for me. I normally need some kind of stimulation to keep my mind busy, whether it's music or looking out a window, etc. But in the shower my anxiety takes over because there's nothing else to look at or listen to. I've been playing music in the bathroom lately, which sometimes helps, but it's still hard to not lose it on a bad day. Podcasts or audiobooks fix this for me. It's so crazy you mention this, because I find that if I'm having an anxious day, a shower doesn't help calm me down, it makes the anxiety so much worse. It's a claustrophobic feeling, I guess. I'm going to try the music. Thank you for sharing. I love this. That's a great idea. The shower thing for me too. I'm pregnant currently, and I found out that I am one of the lucky ones who gets postpartum depression symptoms during pregnancy. I figured this out when I went to take a shower and it didn't help, and I was actually screaming in pain by the time I got out of it. I was able to get help, and a few weeks later, we're doing much better. I feel normal again. Used to get major panic attacks and anxiety. Distractions helped me. Sometimes heading outside with some music and headphones while going for a walk to get some fresh air helps. Massages help. It sounds weird, but I've had friends that have given me neck rubs or massaged my scalp while I was freaking out thinking I was dying. For some reason it has helped during major panic attacks. It also helps when you have friends that experience the same thing. Showers tend to be good for me. Something about the water, whether it's hot or cold, kind of pulls me out of the anxiety or panic attacks I'm in. These things helped me most when I've had panic attacks or anxiety. It took years to conquer and I still get mild anxiety, but the most important thing that helped me was this. I've had panic attacks and anxiety episodes so bad I've called the ambulance or gone to the hospital. During those episodes, I 100% thought I was gonna die. Yet, here I am 5/6 years later writing this out to you all. I survived each episode and I will survive the future ones. If I can, so can you. Don't give up, friends. Valium and don't laugh, adult horror-themed coloring books. If this helps, I'm a software developer and at one of my jobs, they passed out coloring books after some stressful times. There was a bunch of grown men at work all sitting around a table having fun filling out coloring books. We had meetings that were just large blocks of time for nothing but coloring. And you know what? It worked. Got everyone to focus on something else and do a task that didn't really matter. Really refreshed people and helped us come up with some good solutions. Coloring books are a damn effective stress reliever. Sounds fun. Remember that anxiety will likely always be with you, but know that you are driving the car. When anxiety tries to drive, say no, I am driving, you go back to your seat. Personifying my anxiety helped a lot. I can now easily identify when I am talking and when my anxiety is talking. Clean my room till you are bored. Sounds dumb, but if you put a bit of music on, it distracts you and gets something productive done too. If this is you looking for advice, best of luck with your anxiety, man. Okay, but this is the last time I'm cleaning your room. I realized this shortly after, but it was too funny to edit. But Jordan Peterson would be proud. Just be sure to denounce postmodernism before and after using your vacuum. One technique that I was taught, which I actually find to be quite good, is to ground yourself. Pick 5 things you can see, 5 things you can hear, 5 things you can touch, etc. The 5 can be any number, and is probably better a bit lower, because of lack of answers, but the concept is still the same. It's supposed to get your mind working in the right way when it's being flooded in the wrong way, and basically help you control the thought process. It's connected to CBT, cognitive behavioral therapy. How you think affects how you feel and how you behave and vice versa. If you are in an anxiety spiral, it's easier to think even more bad thoughts. Mindfulness is a method to jumpstart your way out of that type of spiral and instead focus on what is immediately in front of you. CBT is an absolute lifesaver for me. It was like putting on glasses for the mind. It corrected my vision of the world. I mean, there are limits and it is primarily symptomatic treatment, but after I went through with it, it became so much easier to work on my regular shit after that. Yeah man, nothing gets you out of a rut quite like cock and ball torture. Exercise. Can't stress enough how much that helps me with a lot of things. Everyone thinks I love going to the gym, but actually I hate it. I just need to go. Keeps me sane and fit. Exercise keeps the internal chatter to a minimum. It's almost like the voices get tired too. Too fucking true. I remember when I started going to the gym I was like, well I have this problem that I'm being anxious with, I'll think about it in the gym. Nope, it just went away for the time I was there. It's like a mute button to your thoughts most of the time. Self-awareness. When I realize my anxiety is bad, acknowledge it and come to terms with. If possible, think of why it's bad and realize it's temporary or just not worth getting anxious about. A step beyond this, for me, is to write out every anxious thought floating around. Typically, being anxious makes me snowball by thinking of all the things that make me anxious. When you take all these issues at once and try to juggle them in your head, it's easily overwhelming. So I make the time to write them all out, then I go back and respond to each one. Writing them out forces me to focus on each issue individually, understand what the source of my anxiety is for that issue, and consider how it might be rectified. By the end, I'm usually much less anxious because I've gotten everything out onto paper and considered it all individually rather than cumulatively. I am anxious because my paper isn't done yet and it's due in 2 days. If I don't get this paper done I'll probably fail and may not get my degree. Response: over the next 2 days there are at least 6 hours available to work on this paper. There are at least 8 to 10 hours if I reduce my sleep by a little. I know I can write a paper in less than 10 hours, so I know I'll have time. Tomorrow I'll do X for at least 3 hours, and the next day I'll finish with Y. Even if this paper isn't my absolute best work, it will still be a passing grade if I spend enough time on it. By passing, my overall grade is guaranteed to be good enough that I won't be kicked out. I'm anxious about my friend being mad at me, because I know I said something rude and hurt them. I don't want them to hate me or stop being my friend. Response: friends fight and people make mistakes. We've been friends long enough that they will likely forgive me. I should come up with a genuine apology and tell them how much I value them. I'll see them at an event Friday, so I want to send them this message by Thursday afternoon. Etc. Message: deep calm breathes. Funny enough, taking deep calm breaths actually makes me more anxious lol. It's almost like my brain knows I only do this when I start panicking, so I panic even more. Great strategy though, as I know it works for a lot of people. Same. 478 breathing was the exception. You might find it same for you. Otherwise, I recommend mindfulness. Super helpful. It's the meditation/soothing without the focus on breathing or the exact same rituals every time, that your brain learns and associates with anxiety the more you repeat. Or, you do what is recommended and do the calm breathing/rituals when calm often and consistently, so you train yourself to be calm when doing those things. But I don't know about you, I'm not that put together. My anxiety has hit an all-time high and it's comforting to me to see that I'm not alone. Thanks everyone for sharing. With as many people as there are in the world, there's always someone who can relate. Hope you start doing better. Oilfield. Oilfield implies upstream, drilling/fracking, offshore rigs, etc., but the same can be said for downstream, refineries, chemical plants, etc. For folks like operators, welders, and inspectors, there's hardly any educational requirement, and the biggest requirements are showing up on time, passing drug tests, and learning the procedures that others teach you. It's pretty easy to make six figures in those roles too. You'd be surprised with how hard it is to find people that show up on time and pass the drug test. Source: work in the oil industry. Took my comment. My company has a backlog of people they would like to fire for good reasons, but every new person we get proves unreliable and dishonest. Source: energy and data center industries garbage disposal service. Yep. I work as a sorter at a construction/demolition yard and am currently making $30 an hour as a 21-year-old. Plus if you're lucky, Your bosses might put you on extra training that qualifies you for even more work in and out of the industry. Only real big issue is how dirty I get. Still, $30 an hour. Hey, that's my job too. There's good money in it and you learn a truckload of skills along the way just working alongside so many different types of tradesmen. Yeah man, it's underrated cause how dirty you get, but so far I've gotten a free WHS cert, excavator ticket and general knowledge that I didn't have before. WHS cert? Yep, WHS cert may not be the best thing to call it, but it is the Health and Safety Representative course. The HSR role is a voted position by the elected worker's teammate. The role of the HSR is to represent the workers on safety issues when in that particular work group. I manage the yard, my coworker manages the truck drivers. It's a $700 course that I got for free that is recognized in most states in Australia. I use the legislation / cops etc. to make sure my bosses stay compliant / the workers feel safe. Traffic control. I paid $400 to join the laborers union and started making $31 an hour the next day. No experience. Absolutely the most boring job ever, but we traveled a lot and saved $. What part did the laborers union play? Because I just googled it and see a posting for the job in my city for $15 per hour, but I'm more interested in this $31 per hour. The union provided insurance, retirement benefits and other things if you stayed for more than 10 years. The dues were about $45 a month. Train driver / conductor / engineer / whatever they are called in your country. That's actually something I might want to get into later. I'm currently getting an English degree at uni. Although there are quite some jobs in that field in the Netherlands, I might just reschool myself as a train driver a few years down the line. Only takes 2 years, the pay starts average and gets really good a few years in. I love traveling by train, and I feel like I would love the freedom feel of driving the train itself. Only downside to this job is the many suicides by train. Around 200 people every year. Yup. That downside caused our neighbor to stop with her job. Even therapy didn't help anymore with all the nightmares and anxiety she had. I mean, it's hard to see somebody jump in front of your train, and not being able to do anything to avoid it. Seeing what it did with her. I'm not so keen to try it. But if it wasn't for that, I wouldn't mind becoming a train driver as well. Also in the Netherlands BTW. I lost my brother 5.5 years ago when he committed suicide by jumping in front of a train. I hadn't talked to him in 6 years and hadn't seen him for 12 years, all because of a stupid argument and holding a grudge. He left everyone a note except me. Not even one word, yet wrote others full-page letters. He was my only family member I had left. Lost my mom to suicide at age 5 and my father had a massive heart attack in front of me at age 15. To anyone holding a grudge and not speaking to someone, just please pick up the phone and call them. I should have called him, I could have called him. Hardest lesson I've ever learned. Please don't be like I was. Make the call while you still can. I was on an Amtrak train a few weeks back. If you live in the United States. Conductor told me that a quarter of their workers are retiring within the next decade and they need new people. He said you can start out at $70,000 a year with benefits and within 3 to 5 years could be making $100,000. No experience needed. That blew me away. I'd check it out if I were you. Edit. I don't work for Amtrak. I just heard this in passing from a conductor on a train in the Northeast Corridor. Take this post with a grain of salt and do your research. To be fair, a quarter of their workers retiring within the next decade doesn't sound like a high number. If they repeat that stat every decade, their average employee will have a 35-year career, which seems pretty reasonable. Edit. I made an unfair assumption in my initial mental math. I believe the average career would be closer to 40 years, not 35, given only the information we have. And baby boomers are a larger than average generation, so as they retire, I assume many industries will be losing a quarter of their employees in the next decade. That's assuming they can retire. If I'm not mistaken, as a whole, boomers are not saving nearly enough for retirement. And many of them just won't be able to. As a millennial, man, I just cannot wait until the boomers have one more reason to hate me. Before the millennials are refusing to take care of their aging parents. Articles begin. I clean garbage trucks for $38 an hour. Damn, what state? Union or non-union? In Australia, mate. You've got yourself a new neighbor. Anything that involves physical risk. Anything you can think of besides police or fire? I need a job and am fine with dying. U.S. Marines recruiting wants to know your location. He said high paying, not $19,000. If you get married in California, bump that up to $60K, and benefits. Plumbing. After your apprenticeship you can make $80,000 a year. U.S. salaries are insane. A qualified plumber here in UK is like 25k a year lol, and during apprenticeship lucky at 15k a year. That's probably because of the difference in prices. I was a plumber's helper for a couple years. The markup that goes on is unbelievable. It really is insane. I've saved myself hundreds, thousands, by knowing how to work with copper plumbing. Plumbers will often charge you $100.00 to install a new fixture, which can be done by most people in 30 minutes. Also, HVAC guys make a killing. I was taking quotes on a new system for an older home and was getting prices from 12-15k. Family friend fixed the unit for $175.00 and said he would rebuild the unit if I wanted and install a new compressor for 8k. He said it was the lowest he could go because he still had to make some money on the deal. My dad is a plumber and my mom worked with him in kind of the apprentice position. I worked with him a lot growing up. Most plumbers have a minimum charge to come out to your house, usually the cost of an hour or two of labor, because if they don't they won't make any money. A plumber's day consists of a lot of driving and most don't charge for that. They can't just clock in the morning and clock out in the evening and get paid for those hours. If every job for a given day is small, it can easily get to the point where you're in the truck half the day, not generating money. Plumbers charge what seems like a lot of money because they have to cover wages, fuel, consumables, keeping their license up to date, vehicle maintenance, tools, insurance both for their vehicles and for the homes they work in, and most have a shop of some kind somewhere that they need to pay for. My parents charged $95 an hour, but they brought home less than half of it, before paying taxes and health insurance. They were also working as an individual, not for a larger company. With the two of them working, that money essentially counted as two wages for their situation. You're paying for their knowledge and the fact that you don't have to mess with it. Pipeline laborer. I got paid weekly. With LOA after taxes I was making $3,000 a week. 2 weeks of training and literally zero experience got me there. Can you tell me more? Also, you earn more than an engineer? Pipeline laborers and especially welders or other skilled workers can definitely make more than pipeline engineers in the right location at the right time. Sometimes much more. The work and wages are more volatile though, since OT plays a big role in the market, can get oversaturated and see wages go down. Diver for sewage plants. Some parts get stuck and need to be cleaned by hand. I mean, you'll grow extra fingers, but I suppose that just helps with maths. I work at a sewage plant and without diving still get paid good. $32 per hour. 12-hour shifts. Made just above 95k this year. I really don't think divers are used very often. You would need to dive in multiple settings or travel the world doing it in wastewater. Chemical plant worker. Started at $15/hour off the street with zero skills, 4 years later, at $30/hour. We work swing shifts, so every month you get 104 hours with $3/hour shift differential for afternoons, overnights, and 48 of those hours are time and a half. Throw in a reasonable amount of voluntary overtime, hit over $100k/annual, which I personally consider to be high paying. Edit to clarify, a full month rotation is 168 hours. 104 of them are on-off shifts with a differential pay bump, and 48 of the hours monthly are built-in overtime, 12-hour weekend shifts. Gonna try to answer a few questions here. People are not realizing how many different types of shifts there are for plant work. They also aren't taking into consideration shutdowns, basic odd, working for other workers, holidays, or just the long shifts in general, which are almost always 12 hours everywhere. Odd is how we make our money. Starting out at $15 HR and making $30 HR in 4 years is absolutely reasonable if the person in question works hard, learns fast, takes every training/certification/licensing class they can and puts forth the effort. This is not always the case, but it can be done. The help of working for a good company to begin with is also important. Some companies don't care about you at all and some companies treat you like family. We get paid a lot because of the stuff we have to learn, hours we work, stress on our bodies, physical/mental/emotional, and chemicals we have to be around. We take these jobs knowing we are probably going to get cancer, or something else, depending on the chemical you're around, but the pay is good while I'm young and I have kids to feed and send to school. I have a house note and 2 car payments, by necessity, not choice. My wife is going to school, my roof has a hole in it, my AC is about to go out in the house, and my driveway is fucked. I didn't want any of this, but my mom living situation was toxic and I had to do what was best for my child. I can't afford a babysitter, but I make enough that my wife doesn't have to work if she doesn't want to. It's not what I wanted to do. Waking up at 4 a.m. every day, working weekends all the time, Not seeing my kids before bed or on holidays or getting to eating lunch with them at school, being too tired/depressed on the weekends to want to do anything. That shit sucks, but it's the path my life went. It wasn't supposed to be permanent, but I don't have time for school and I can't afford to start somewhere else because of my bills. I'm sure I'm just making up excuses, but I'm fucking tired. I'm married to an amazing woman, but I'm lonely and depressed. I feel like I don't have anyone to talk to, but I'm a man cause I work a lot. Lol, whatever nib. Stripper. In fact I think they prefer you to not have decades of experience. Drug dealer. I'm a substance abuse counselor and I can confirm some of my clients made way more money than me when they were dealing drugs. The guy I buy weed from is 20 and he makes roughly $2,000 a week in profit. It's not fair, but at least I can call the police if I get robbed. Railroad. Yep, my dad is an engineer and makes great money. He works hard for it, it's not an easy job, but they provide all the training you need and give you a chance to make bank. Just being able to tell people you're in training would be worth it. Jobs that pay well are generally going to either be hard to get into or hard to put up with. Do yourself a favor and stick with the ones that are hard to get into. Words of wisdom. I'm a degreed engineer. I was privileged to graduate from college with no student debt, but for most, that situation isn't possible. I always say that the best thing about my degree is that at the end of the day, I have the freedom to leave a job that's hard to put up with and find a more desirable one. Under normal economic circumstances, I will probably always have access to a specific job pool, targeting people with a certain knowledge set and a paper to prove it. But college isn't always the answer. There are plenty of high-paying jobs you can get the quick and dirty way, but many of them aren't pretty. I actually work with a lot of highly paid operators. From what I can tell, I deal with a lot less BS than them based on how much I listen to them gripe and groan about work. They only stay around for the dollar. The college versus trade school versus no further education decision is answered by a couple questions. How much debt are you willing to acquire to get to do the job you desire? Is the job you desire generally valued by society? How desired is your role on the job market? Are you willing to sacrifice your pay and financial stability for the job you desire? It's up to the candidate to decide. This is a really good point and kinda my reasoning as well. I'm a recent engineering graduate and I work closely with operators. They make great money, but the working environment and work-life balance just isn't for everyone. That's something a lot of people don't take into consideration. I would personally get paid less, yet still a really good salary, to have a much better work-life balance. But if that's not something you care about, then you do you. Lost my phone, thought my friend took it because he had a bulge in his pants, grabbed said bulge, handful of dick. That's my penis, sir. Oh, one notices bulge? I'm a professional body piercer. I touch other dudes' dicks all the time. My wife and I hang out with a lot of married couples. I realize that when I greet the wives in the group and when we leave, I kiss them on the cheek. After realizing that I was doing this without really thinking about it, I just started doing it to the guys too. That way they don't think I'm some weird creep trying to mac on their wives, they just think I'm weird. Surprisingly everyone is cool with it and it's just sort of become my thing. Just about everyone leans into it now and gets confused if I happen to not give them a kiss on the cheek. Went to tuck in my homie one night, tripped over a shoe and my mouth landed on his dick. Hate when that happens. Every single time. I've probably seen more dicks in person than most other men thanks to the military. Packer checker for piss tests? Nothing like watching each other take shits in boot camp. I said I was gay in 5th grade so people would stop thinking I liked this one girl. Task failed successfully. How did that turn out for you? They're married. Kissed a dude, I guess. Or if you think that sitting in a hot room with a bunch of naked sweaty dudes is gayer, then that. Sauna, I'm Finnish. I'm pretty sure finishing makes a gay dude. 2015, me a horny college freshman with a GF that I was figuring how to break up with. I went to a conference 5 to 6 hours away in a large city, with approximately 700 college students attending. Like any college event, after it was over, there was after-hours fun with alcohol and partying. Went to a party with some friends, clicked with a girl who kept feeding me drinks until I was exploding with lust, drunk, and ready to fuck something. Long story short, I realized some of her the GF friends were there and I stopped myself. Hotel room, 2 hours later, drunk and sleeping in a king bed with a dude because my college was cheap, I started dreaming about fucking the girl at the party. Turns out I had been spooning the dude on the other side of the bed by accident and probably humping him in my sleep. The thought of seeing a really confused guy laying there while you're spooning and humping him brings a tear of joy to my eye. My best bro and I are so gay together. We consistently flirt, and one time, at a party, a girl asked one of our close friends if we were gay. He was like, "No, not at." Well, we don't think so? His mom once told him he was allowed to invite me to family dinner and he was like, "I know?" And she then said, "And you know we would support you if." We made out once to get two chicks to make out. I'm pretty sure I'm in denial. Edit, we are in denial. Also, we know all the words to No Homo by Lonely Island and frequently sing together. Edit 2, my girlfriend, R, says I have to tell you about something that was recent. Before I met her, I ended up moving in with my parents for about 8 months. About halfway through that time, my best bro needed a place to stay and my parents know how close we are, so they let him stay with us. We were going to get an air mattress for him, but the first night he got there it was really late and we decided just to share the bed. Fast forward 4 months, we're still sleeping together in the same bed. It was cute. I would appreciate a link to your live-streamed wedding in the future. Edit, Steam to streamed. Just tell him you love him already. I do, frequently. It's how we end our phone calls. On deployment in the Marine Corps, I was laying in the desert next to my team leader under a perfect sky. All the stars were out and the air felt like the shade on a hot day. Him and I talked calmly about our families, our dreams, and how perfect the sky looked and how small that made us. "Hold my hand," he said. I could feel, without touching, that his arm was extending. Over the course of the following second I contemplated my whole existence before half-consciously reaching out to him. His hand felt nice and we said nothing. This lasted for maybe 10 minutes until we fell asleep. That's really beautiful. And you conveyed it well. Made me feel very calm and nice. This was actually commonplace until Oscar Wilde, that's right the writer, had a public trial for being gay with an aristocrat's son. Thereafter it no longer became acceptable for men to hold hands or sleep in the same bed. This is why in places that didn't have that news coverage, i.e. Saudi Arabia, men still hold hands, like when George Bush regularly held the king's hand. Also, Abraham Lincoln for several years slept in the same bed as another man, and it wasn't considered taboo. I think it sucks that affection between men is so touchy in Western culture. Like if you wanted to hold a friend's hand, or hug a guy because you're happy to see him. Even I myself would be a little weirded out if it happened to me, but I don't know why. Meanwhile, girls kissing each other 3 times or so as a casual greeting, made out naked with a dude in the living room of his girlfriend's parents' house. It was the price to pay for something that never came to fruition. That game of strip Uno got out of hand fast. Edit, because people keep asking, we were drinking heavily and thought we could get our girlfriends naked and make out. Hot, right? That was our thought. Well, we set forth the rules of 1 piece of clothing per lost hand. Us on one team, girls on the other. Last loss would be make out. Well, we fucking lost entirely because we forgot about girls having 1 extra article of clothing than men. They were laughing their way to the proverbial bank. Someone has AMA gold on deck. I had a sleepover at my friend's house when I was 13, and we laid out some blankets and fell asleep in his living room. I woke up first to him spooning me, and I didn't move at all because I wanted to avoid any awkward moment in our friendship by having us both know of that cuddle moment, so I laid there as still as I could for maybe 30 minutes until he woke up and quickly but carefully got off of me. I then got up 10 minutes later, and that moment now doesn't exist in our friendship. Apparently I did this with my cousin when I was sleeping. Are you my cousin? Is this weird? I had sleepovers with friends all the time and I had to share a bed with my brother for most of my childhood, and rolling happens a lot. Not rare to wake up next to, on, or under someone. Just move or push M and go back to sleep. The only weird part of this thread are the dudes talking about sexual acts, some pretty fetishy, and saying no homo or I work socks or something so it's fine. My best friend and I were maybe freshmen, sophomore in high school. We would frequently fall asleep in the same bed when I came over playing Xbox or watching movies. One night I woke up to his head on my chest and he woke up from me laughing. He just said sorry and passed the fuck out again on his pillow. He probably doesn't remember, but I still think it was funny. Now that this is popular, I don't have that much to promote, so here is my Tinder profile. This is actually adorable. I gave a guy a hand job. Did he also have an affair with your wife and want to marry your underage daughter that he abducted in plain sight once? That show. What the fuck? IKR. Spent the whole time going okay, but what the actual fuck is happening? Once tried hugging a bro goodbye and we ended up making lip contact for more than a second by accident. Did not mind it. Handsome fella. Tender kisser. Bugged his GF about it for the next 3 years. More than a second. By accident. You've gotta pick one. Hey. I kissed your BF bitch. I had a legitimate sexual attraction to a male professor in college. It was weird. I sort of realized what I was feeling when he told our class his wife and left him, and immediately I thought yes. LMAO. Did you try your luck though? The lack of a reply haunts me. It haunts us all. His username implies he moved on to bigger things. Once, my friend group decided to skinny dip and play truth or dare. The girls wanted to see how far us guys would go, so they kept daring us to do shit like make out, touch each other's dicks, etc. For me personally, I made out with another guy, and one of the guys kissed my dick. I'd say that's pretty far to go for all of us. We're all straight. Those girls fucking cracked the truth or dare code, man. Absolutely lol, they knew what they were getting into. Doing very gay stuff for very hetero reasons. Never underestimate the power of horny guys. I pretended to be Kevin's boyfriend for the night and inadvertently signaled my availability to a gay bar. When I was backpacking in Sydney, a bunch of Irish girls at the backpacker hostel, Jolly Swagman FTW, wanted to go to this place on Oxford Street. As far as guys go, there was me, Irish man named Kevin, and 2 Danish men we called the 2 Jans, pronounced Jans. As soon as it became apparent the place was a gay bar, on a street full of gay bars and clubs. Thanks girls, and the girls wanted to see our reactions, the Jans left. Me and Kevin stayed. We figured that we got to flirt with these girls knowing that we wouldn't get anywhere, but the fact that we were in the group as 2 guys meant the other patrons would think we were an item and these were our lady friends, so we were safe enough. I did get a little bored near the end, so I started shining my laser pointer on my keychain up at the ceiling, and my dot was joined by another. And another. And another. Fucking hell, laser pointers were a gay bat signal in Sydney in 1998. So yeah. That would be it. I lit the beacon and gaylords called for aid. Fucking hell, laser pointers were a gay bat signal in Sydney in 1998. I think not only in Sydney in 1998. Holy shit, I think my cats might be gay. My wrestling team and I used to have group nap sessions where we would use each other as pillows. Lol, my high school team did this too. The heavyweight would lay on the mat and we'd all have our heads on his belly in a circle. So comfy. Glad to know my team wasn't the only one, haha. My friends and I were all in a bathroom together, and we were really hyped up for some reason, and we showed each other our wieners. Oddly enough, I think it made us better friends. Ah, the infamous D Club. Edit, my most upvoted comment and my first silver is on a comment about the D Club. That's perfect, I'm glad I could make so many of you smile today. Did we just find Arnold Handsome's Reddit alt? Danny and Arnold, I love those boys. Not mine, but I had a friend whose frat's hazing was to watch gay porn with the rest of the freshmen. The first one to had an erection was declared the gayest. This was years back, guys. After every scene, if none of them had a hard-on, they took a shot. Apparently they watched 2 movies and everybody passed out half the third one. I feel like the more you drink, the less likely it is to get a boner. Yeah, whiskey dick is a real fucking thing. Ran my hand down a guy's chest and cupped his balls for more than a second. Edit, isn't it more fun without context? But I work in data analytics and accounting, not tailoring, airport security, or the medical field. Dude, you touched his chest? Jesus, this should be higher. That's what he said. I was curious what it would be like to suck a dick. Turns out I'm still straight, lol. Yay, I've wondered the same thing, like what does the dick feel like in my throat? I feel the same. I'm not attracted to dudes like romantically, as in I could not see myself dating a guy, but the idea of sucking a dick doesn't seem bad. No pressure, but the only person stopping you is yourself. Username checks out, but I just don't know how to even initiate that. Download Grindr, put your username as straight/curious, make a joke about wanting to gobble cock or something stupid so people know you don't already have an object jammed up your ass, block/ignore/politely decline dicks until you find one that looks appetizing. Reading this was the gayest thing I've done. Just watch. If you want to see a show or a movie and you don't know if it's on Netflix or Prime or Hulu or Cthulhu, you can just search that show on Just Watch and it will tell you where you can watch it. Similarly, if you have a VPN, NordVPN is a great one. Unogs.com lets you search for movies and shows across the Netflix catalog of tons of countries. Wanna watch Harry Potter on Netflix but live in the US? Set up your VPN to connect to a server in France. You can search just about anything and it'll be on Netflix somewhere. VPNs are super neat. Edit: NordVPN works flawlessly for me, but there are definitely VPNs that will not. Free ones are pretty much guaranteed to not work. Radio Garden. A cool way to listen to radio stations all over the world. You just scroll around the globe, and find what you want. http://radio.garden/. Edit: you can scroll through all the different stations on a single dot slash surrounding the dot by clicking the station names at the bottom right. It took me longer than it should have to figure this out, thought I'd save that struggle for others. Thousands of radio stations, any song from the entirety of human history, and somehow I get rickrolled from Italy. I found so much Beyoncé. Everybody loves Beyoncé. I think GeoGuessr.com is really fun. It's a game where it drops you in a random Google Street View and you try to pinpoint where you are in the world. There's also an app for it. Great to kill a bit of time. Wimp.com. This site has a 10+ year backlog of the most interesting videos from across the web. It's updated daily, and is essentially daily dose of internet, but years older. And know who's watching in 2019? Comments. Yeah. I have been seeing that a lot on YouTube. What did I miss? Why is everyone so interested in when people are watching videos? Damn, people have been doing this for years. It's basically YouTube karma whoring. They aren't actually interested. LMAO, Letterboxd. Rating site for movies. Love to discover new movies to watch and see other people's opinions on movies as well. Interesting, never heard of this. I normally just Google the name of a movie or TV show and go by IMDb/tomato ratings. Be warned though, Letterboxd is a cinephile community, so what it agrees upon is not always liked by a more casual audience. Great way to find small gems though. Sounds like rat hair music. But comparing RIM's top all-time chart with Letterboxd's, it appears RIM is still top dog when it comes to pretentiousness. Stack Overflow. Don't forget Google to find those Stack Overflow results. Do people actually search on Stack Overflow, or does everyone just search in Google and click the first so link? No, you add site stackoverflow.com to the end of your search inquiry to make sure all of them are Stack Overflow links. I do this for Reddit, because the Reddit search is ass. Was a while ago, it may be better now, but I still use Google Goodreads. It's really great for finding new reads, and for getting real reviews on books. But I mostly use it for its quote section. They have a massive amount of quotes from who knows how many authors, books and other things. I really love quotes, and my friend and I used to send quotes to each other daily that reflected our mood at the time, or the events in our lives. Additionally, they don't just have those cliché quotes you see with a pretty font on nature backgrounds. Goodreads got me back into reading regularly. It's a great way to keep track of what to read next. I use the yearly challenge as motivation and discipline myself to review every book I've read, though I'm not sure how often my reviews are read. I'd love to figure out how to use the groups to find like-minded readers and new book ideas, but haven't got around to navigating that vast sea. Goodreads the best. I've been using it for so long, and the yearly reading challenges are so helpful too. Windy.com. Well, I just like to watch winds, currents, temps and so on. Neopets.com. Fun fact, Neopets can't die, so if you made an account years and years ago, then this whole time your Neopets have been starving and lonely, unable to end their torture. I don't feed my Neopets for this very same reason. Sweet Jesus. And we are Jesus's Neopets. For all you pianists, ninsheetmusic.org is a great site if you want to play a large variety of almost 4,000 video game sheet music and counting. Got the whole Undertale collection and a hella lot of Pokemon, Mario, Legend of Zelda, Kirby etc. music sheets for you to play. Not a shill BTW, even though I've got some sheets on there. I just love the site and community. For all classical sheet music up until 70 years ago, there is imslip.org, amazing website. It didn't cross my mind that NIN stood for Nintendo. I thought it was 9-inch nails. MIT OpenCourseWare is genuinely useful, free. Also allows me to say I've attended MIT, which is A+ in my book. Mapechart.net, create your own custom maps of the world or continent or whichever. TheTrueSize.com, a great way to demonstrate the problems with the Mercator projection of maps. GeoGuessr.com, play around with Google Maps and guess where it places you in the world. Dailymotion.com/video/x604, I use this to watch any episode of Jeopardy for free because I like to have it on in the background. And finally, ambientmixer.com, mix your favorite sounds to create a relaxing ambience. I like the one for Mr. Tumnus' house. I thought Stumbled Upon was shut down. Used to love it though. I came to Reddit after Stumble Upon became basically all ads. Sad to hear it was shut down. Wikipedia. $3. I just give them $50 each year so they don't bother me. Honestly, I think Wikipedia is a worthy cause to donate to. Can you give me $50 so I won't bother you every year? Do you run a website that contains more or less the entire human knowledge in a highly searchable, multilingual format without ads? Yes, TV tropes. Great for going through movies and games I've completed to see what tropes and cliches they've used. That does sound interesting. I found this article that showed the color palette used on Breaking Bad, for each of the characters and the settings, how it changed throughout the series. That was interesting. Yeah. It's great to be able to reflect over a show after you've completed it, and see what things it's done that have been done before. Plus some pages will have bonus pages, such as talking about the fridge logic or plot holes of something, isranydeal.com. There you can see where and which games are on sale from legit sellers. Also lowest price right now and in history. I am a bit disappointed nobody mentioned archive.org. A truly wonderful project that deserves more attention. There's, Gmail. Fuck, what else do I even do online? Pornhub. Oh hey. I love that site. I'm a big fan of some of the content creators on that platform. Yeah, the community hub is so good and they always post some of the best content. Angelic Face. hex.frvr.com/. I found this site in a Reddit post ages ago and it's probably the most addicting thing ever. Just a small Tetris-like game that's played with hexagons some guy said he accidentally made while playing around in HTML, Khan Academy. It's awesome. Along with Coursera, Open University, edX, Allison Courses, Future Learn, among others. As a researcher, I find myself at scholar.google.com, search for research articles and journal articles that go on to cite them. sci-hub.tw/pirate research articles. It's sad that a lot of research is behind a paywall. I'm thankful for Sci-Hub. arXiv.org/respected repository of research articles and preprints. libgen.io, pirate textbooks and books. stackexchange.com, best Q&A for programming, math, physics, the rest of them sciences, and D&D. Thought you meant it's a site with textbooks about / from pirates. Disappointed. Same. I started rubbing my hands together while mumbling now here we go to myself in hopes of learning the secrets of conducting high seas plundering and mayhem, only to be left ashore. AO3. I like my fanfics and I'm not even ashamed of it. Ravelry, Google Maps, Wikipedia. Ravelry is fun. The useless web enjoy. http://corndog.io. Fuck. Yes. Fuck, it redirected me to Staggering Beauties with that weird Inflato guy and the flashes fucked me right up. I got a pooping pooch's calendar. Club Penguin rewritten is a fun time consumer. Do you get member perks and all that? I really loved Club Penguin. I played up until it closed. I know I'm an adult but it really just helps me calm down and zen out and I'd love to be able to walk some MF Puffles again. Yes you do. Highly recommend. The SCP Wiki. A wiki-style collaborative sci-fi/horror writing website. It surrounds the fictional SCP Foundation, a shadow organization tasked with containing and studying things that don't fit within known science. Each article can be anything from terrifying to heartwarming to confusing to sad to existentially horrifying. You may need to check the page discussion forums and r/declassified to understand some of the articles you come across. There are currently more than 5,000 individual SCP items and tales. So if you want to understand the vast and interconnected lore you better start reading. For people who don't know where to start I recommend Lord Bung's Confinement series on YouTube. It's based on and inspired by SCP put into a humorous format. It's also still ongoing. In the description he lists which SCP entries inspired him for that episode. Craigslist. I basically get to go to yard sales without leavening my house and I don't buy anything. Brings new meaning to just browsing. Plus, the personals section is always a good read. And I go across the country. I like to see what my dollar will get me in other states. We have gumtree.com.au in Australia instead of Craigslist. But I also like these free cycle sites we have, which I have done lots of plant swapping on. Also got a brand new pair of running shoes. I thought Craigslist ditched the personals, at least they did where I live. YouTube for me. A lot of good stuff there. Just make sure to stay away from the recently discovered horrific parts of it. Recently discovered? That shit has been going on for years on YouTube. It's terrifying, but it's not new. And it's not recently discovered on Reddit either. I have seen posts about it going back years. Fanfiction.net. Don't knock it till you try it, friends. And archive of our own. Same. I love AO3. Their download feature has ensured that I can continue reading even without internet. Also, their entire work option when displaying a multi-chaptered story is great if you have slow internet. In case you ever would like to read some of the Star Wars EU books. http://www.hungryewok.ru/sw/roll_books.htm. Happy to see Hungry Ewoks is still alive and running. Well, there you have it. The best websites according to Reddit. Thank you for watching this video. We look forward to your comments and questions. Don't forget to like this video and share with your friends. Subscribe to our channel for more amazing videos and remember to click that notification bell for updates.